This is Greg Young. I'm the chair of the Northport Conservation Commission, and this is the meeting of February 17th. This open meeting of the Northport Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the Northborough Conservation Commission are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows Northborough Conservation Commission to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda, unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dan Clark.
Here.
Justin Dufresne.
Here.
Diane Goldner.
Here.
Todd Helwig.
Here.
Very good. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mia McDonald.
Here.
Jim DiGiulio.
Here.
Fred Litchfield.
Here.
Very good. I will invite each speaker or applicant on the agenda by name to make a presentation and speak to their application. Participants will provide their full name and hold until the name is called. Each speaker will be asked to mute their phone or computer when not speaking and to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them by the chair. Speakers who wish to respond to the comments of others do so through me, taking care to identify themselves. Each vote taken by the board or commission will be conducted by roll call vote. After members have spoken, we will afford public comment as follows. By phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please note that part of your phone number will be visible to those viewing the meeting. By Zoom, click Raise Hand on the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized by the chair. I will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once I have a list of all public commentators, I will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. And I believe Kelly Marston has joined us. Kelly, can you confirm it's you?
It's me.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Welcome. All right.
And Mr. Chair, you have a hand raised in the audience as well from Mark.
Mark.
Mark Farrell is a representative for 20 Dennis Circle.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, let's see. Does he have a question? Or is he just telling us he's here for the session?
I don't know.
I can activate him if you'd like.
Yeah, let's bring him in for a quick second and see what's going on.
Yep. Mark, you're on if you want to unmute yourself.
I just wanted to make sure I was on. It's Mark Farrell, Green Hill Engineering. I will just wait.
Yep, you're on, Mark. We got you. Thank you. You'll be a little bit on the agenda.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on tonight's agenda, we've had a few changes here. We've got continuations requested from 161 Church Street, continuation requested for 85 and 95 West Street, and a continuation requested for 0 Hudson Street. So those will all be put on the March agenda. I believe it's March 15th.
We do need to vote
to
allow those.
March 15th?
March 15th, and we need a vote to allow them to continue.
We have a motion to continue those 3 applications.
So moved.
Second,
Seconded by, was that Diane?
yes.
Roll call vote. Diane Goldner,
Yes.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Todd Helwig,
Yes.
Justin Dufresne,
Yes.
Kelly Marston,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Okay, meeting minutes from last month.
I have a small correction on that.
What's that, Diane?
There's a small correction on that.
Okay, where do you have it?
Down the 5th sentence down starts out with herself. And I think that's Ally.
Which page are you on?
Should be just the front page there. Wherever the minutes are. Talking about the walkway.
Ally Lane?
Yeah, I think she identified her, whoever typed it in did it as herself. Which I don't think would be right. So it'd be Ally and Mia and Scott. I forgot who else. There's somebody else there.
Oh, okay. Scott Charpentier?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
You
all.
got- Mia, do you have that? Any other comments, corrections, omissions? If there's none being said, we need a motion to accept with the requested amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Dan Clark, I believe. Roll call vote. Diane Goldner,
Yes.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Todd Helwig,
Yes.
Justin Dufresne,
Yes.
Kelly Marston,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. All right. Let's go to the stormwater. We've got consultants on the clock here, Fred, right? Let's maximize the run rate here and go to the stormwater management piece. You want to bring in a couple of attendees here, right?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind bringing in Emily Sirbo and Cassandra La Rochelle.
I think Cassandra already, yep, they're both here.
Perfect.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, I see Emily. And there is Cassandra. Very good. Welcome. Fred, how do you want to move forward here? Do you want to discuss it? And
If you don't mind, what I'd like to do is just introduce Emily and Cassandra. They are our consultants working with myself and Scott Charpentier, the DPW director, to help us make sure we're in full compliance with the federal stormwater program.
okay, good. That's good, Fred. Before we do that, could you just do like a 30-second reset for the commission?
I will.
Thank you.
The EPA requires the towns to regulate stormwater runoff from that goes through the drainage system through the town into local water bodies, and we're required to have certain regulations in place. And for a number of years, we have been doing this. The permit started back in, I believe, 2003, and the new permit was issued in 2016, I believe. And we have been doing it through a various number of regulations, through conservation's bylaw, planning board rules and regulations, earthwork permits, groundwater overlay stuff. So a number of different things, but what they've asked us to do, they've tightened up the requirements a little bit, asked us to adopt a general bylaw that kind of pulls everything into one place. And the town needs a board or commission to administer these permits. And so we're hoping that the Conservation Commission will agree to administer the bylaw. We're expecting that it will not be an additional significant burden to your duties. Most, if not all, of the projects that you normally hear would require these kinds of permits. There are very few that would be under your jurisdiction that would require that wouldn't require a permit. So with that said, what I was hoping to do if unless there's some questions on how we got to this point, turn it over to Emily, who has a quick slide presentation to kind of walk you through it. And then the bylaw, you have a copy of the bylaw. We can entertain questions. The goal is to go to town meeting in the spring. The date has not been confirmed yet for that. We're not going to be able to meet indoors, so they're looking for an outdoor venue and date similar to last year, but not in July. Once we get town meeting approval, we will then be back, if I assume we get town meeting approval, we will be back before you and ask you to hold a public hearing and adopt some regulations that need to be promulgated prior to June 30th so that we can meet all the requirements of the current permit. So there's a couple of steps here, and then the permit would be effective July 1st. So I'll let Emily walk through the presentation that she has regarding the bylaw that's proposed. We can ask some questions, and we can talk about logistics afterwards, but know that if there's anything in particular that the commission would like to see amended or revised, we do have that opportunity in the next few days before it goes to town meeting for the printing of the warrant next month.
Thank you, Fred.
Okay, can everybody see my screen now?
I can, yes.
Yeah,
Good, you can see the PowerPoint. Okay, good. I'm just gonna adjust so I can see all of you. I think that's pretty good. Okay, so thank you, Fred. I think you actually covered this. That was sort of the quick version of the whole presentation. So I won't, I will try not to belabor it. But yes, I'm Emily Sherbo from Time Bond, here with Cassandra La Rochelle. Again, Fred already covered this, but what I'd like to go over is just a quick overview of EPA's stormwater program and why we're doing this. Then we'll discuss the proposed stormwater management and land disturbance bylaw, which you have. Really, we're here to answer any questions and talk about any concerns that you have or the public has at this point in the process. And then I think Fred just laid out the next steps pretty nicely, but we'll talk about that one more time. Click. All right, so for members of the public, I do like to go back and talk about what is stormwater and why do we even care about that. So stormwater is rainwater that falls on paved streets, lawns, parking lots, and sidewalks, and it can become polluted stormwater. Stormwater runoff is different than the sanitary sewer in that it doesn't go to a centralized treatment plant. It largely just discharges to local waterways. Typical pollutants that you'll find in stormwater runoff are trash, oil, fertilizers, sediment, sand, bacteria. Okay. In response to the impact that stormwater has on Massachusetts waterways, EPA promulgated the Small MS Stormwater Program in 2003. MS4 is just the municipal separate storm sewer system. It's EPA's way of saying the municipal drainage system. The program is jointly administered by EPA and Mass DEP. And as Fred mentioned, in 2016, they issued a new updated stormwater permit that had more stringent requirements that went into effect on July 1st, 2018. It technically expires in July of 2022. However, if the last permit is anything to go by, that was extended for an additional, for many additional years. It should have expired in 2008, so 10 more years. Another point to make is that this program only applies to the urbanized area, and this red mapping over here is the regulated area. So you can see that most of Northborough is considered regulated. For the purposes of this bylaw, the plan would be to apply it to the entire town, just for simplicity's sake. And Fred, jump in if I miss anything.
Okay.
When it comes to locally regulating stormwater, the MS4 general permit requires that Northborough do the following things. First is implement and enforce a program to reduce pollutants and stormwater runoff to the MS4 from land disturbances equal to or greater than 1 acre within the regulated area. You have to meet additional requirements for projects where stormwater discharges to impaired waters or waters subject to a total maximum daily load. The big one for you in Northborough is the Assabet River phosphorus TMDL. So you also have to meet requirements for additional record keeping and annual reporting to ensure operation and maintenance, and then include requirements in the stormwater bylaw for enhanced post-construction stormwater treatment. So the next few slides go over some of these more specific code requirements. First off, for example, is EPA would like to see submission of as-built drawings within 2 years of completion of a construction project. They would like to see management of construction site waste in addition to the normal erosion and sediment control that you would require during construction periods. They're looking for towns to do more inspection and enforcement of sites before, during, and after construction. Another change is that low impact development is now required to the maximum extent feasible. And the definition of low impact development has sort of evolved over the last 10 to 15 years. EPA's definition is currently systems and practices that use or mimic natural processes that result in infiltration, evapotranspiration, or the use of stormwater. So what they're looking for is preservation and recreation of natural landscape features, minimization of impervious areas, functional and appealing site drainage, and then just really in general, treating stormwater as if it's a resource. So, keeping rainwater on site, infiltrating, because it eventually fills your streams and becomes the water that we drink. Green infrastructure, which everybody's familiar with, but that's bioretention areas, rain gardens, vegetated rooftops, rain barrels, permeable pavement. EPA is also requiring enhanced post-construction stormwater management design criteria. There's a whole bunch of additional design criteria that you will see in the draft regulations once those are out. It's much more stringent than the 2003 MS4 permit, and it's also more stringent than the current state stormwater handbook. So they're looking at EPA is asking for retention or treatment of runoff from the first inch of rainfall, similar requirements for redevelopment, et cetera, et cetera. Again, they're specifying more record keeping and data management in general, but specifically for long-term operation and maintenance of stormwater BMPs. And the big issue is that what EPA is looking for no longer matches the Mass Handbook, and that's expected to be out as a draft for public comment in the spring. We'll see. The problem is that EPA needs towns to adopt these new requirements before June 30th this year. So you can see that the timing really doesn't work out. Eventually the handbook's going to converge on what EPA wants to see. It's just not going to happen in time. You might be thinking to yourself, like Fred said, like, aren't we already doing this? And yes, you are already looking at development and redevelopment for a lot of the criteria that EPA was looking for. You can see through these different local bylaws and regulations and permits. You are, I think, capturing most of the projects you should be seeing, but as you can tell, it's complicated. They're coming in through multiple different methods, and they don't all have the same requirements. So the advantage of having this one stormwater bylaw would be to streamline the language, have the one permit, have all your design criteria all in one place that's consistent with the general permit. You also would have the ability to charge a technical review fee under this bylaw, so using the 53G account. What we're working on next is the draft regulations that would go with this, as Fred mentioned. That will have all the detailed submittal requirements and performance standards and design criteria all spelled out. And then next steps would be to work with you to finalize this bylaw language and obtain Conservation Commission approval, eventually adopt it at town meeting, and then get the regulations in place shortly thereafter. So with that, we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Very good. Just resize my window here so I can see what's going on. There we go. Just a question I have here, and this is the one that I asked, I think, when you first brought this to the commission back in maybe December. Reporting requirements, and I heard additional enhanced reporting requirements, which is a scary term when the government gets involved. Who's going to do these? I think I know the answer to that. And is that going to impact her time on Conservation Commission basic activities?
Well, your intuition is correct. We're looking to burden Mia slightly. I'm not concerned, and I haven't heard any significant concern for Mia that this will be overwhelming for her. It is similar to what she already does for these types of sites. It's no more persistence on her part for a project similar than what she did at 330, 350 Bartlett Street, where she met regularly with the developer and the contractor who was doing the work. Weekly meetings when it was necessary, action responses being suggested and reviewed. The enhancement, what's here now that wasn't here technically before is the recording of all those construction and inspection reports. She's been doing them. She's been doing much better at it than I ever did, but she's been doing it, and there'll now be a form that needs to be filled out each time and kept in the file and reported back to the EPA when we do our annual report, indicating what kind of issues we had during the year, how many violations we might have had, things like that. But it's pretty much the same as what she's been doing in terms of the construction and inspection. The new thing is that this will be a separate permit. There'll be a separate application, is my understanding, for applicants to submit along with their NOI. We've tried to align the policy and procedures and deadlines for scheduling the meetings, holding the hearings, issuing decisions with your current wetlands regulations and bylaw. The goal is to not have any additional meetings required for the board because of timing. If there's an additional workload, there may be one or two in the course of a year that might need a permit of this nature that wouldn't have gotten a permit from you under the wetlands bylaw and regulations. That's my guess and estimate.
And we're going to fold, like you mentioned, Fred, we would fold all of the meetings into our existing schedule.
Yes, the goal would be, even though the public hearings would be the same. You'd advertise one public hearing for the two permits. You'd hold all the same information would be gathered during the public hearing, and then you would sign two permits, one for the regular order of conditions and then one for the stormwater management and land disturbance permit.
It sounds like there are existing regulations out there now, but these are going to be superseded by new ones that'll be drafted or will be in effect for 6/30.
6/30. Well, I don't know that any of the existing bylaws are going to go away. I think this will be supplemental too. You'll still have your order of conditions. Planning board will still have subdivision rules and regulations and special permits from the planning board and the zoning board because there are different things presented. This is a way to get us everything that has to do with stormwater covered in case it's not covered in any of those other permits.
What I was mean, are there going to be just stormwater specific? Are there going to be new stormwater specific guidelines coming out?
That's what the bylaw is. And then the regulations would be how it gets implemented, and that would come, after town meeting action.
I think, are you asking about from DEP in our new wetlands regulations, the draft that Emily
Are
mentioned?
there going to be new, whatever the quantitative metrics are with flow rates or turbidity, or what are there going to be new measurements around anything like that don't exist today or exist today but are going to be changed?
Emily, do you want to answer
Yeah,
that?
I can answer that. Yes. Yeah, the answer is yes. So that's all going to be in the regulations. And eventually, the mass handbook that you're using now is going to probably match what we're putting in the regulations. It's just that DEP is way behind in that process. So we have to do this at the local level. We can't just point to the handbook anymore, which is unfortunate. So we're basically just taking the language that EPA put in their permit and putting it into your local code.
Do we have something, Emily, forgive me for not knowing this myself, but do we have something in the proposed bylaw, or will it be in the regulations that kind of ties it to that stormwater handbook once it comes out, so that there won't be a need to go back and amend the bylaw or the regulations later on?
We will have that. I don't think it's in the bylaw. I think that will be in the regulations. The bylaw right now is sort of pointing to the MS4 program as that baseline threshold because it is currently more stringent. In the regulations, what we've been doing is saying like these are the design criteria, but you also need to meet in certain aspects of the mass handbook, and whichever is more stringent prevails.
Okay. All right, so as you know, Greg, what we're hoping is that the goal was for the bylaw to be adopted to meet the standards required by the EPA and get us in compliance and keep us in compliance. And then the regulations, which are easier to modify from time to time with simply a public hearing by the Conservation Commission to amend or change or add information as it becomes necessary. We could do it that way. The goal is to not have to go back to town meeting every year and amend the bylaw, or even every 5 years. The goal is to kind of adopt it, and then everything else will be done and monitored through the regulations.
Any more questions from the commission?
I had a question, just I guess so I'm clear. This first step is to sort of transfer the responsibility of these stormwater regulations to the Conservation Commission. Is that?
Yeah, basically it's to make it concisely administered by the Conservation Commission.
Okay. So, and these regulations, you're revising them, or you're updating them, or you might update them?
Well, what we're presenting tonight is a bylaw for land disturbance and stormwater. And once that's adopted, then the role and responsibility of administering that bylaw falls to the Conservation Commission. And then after town meeting, if the bylaw is adopted, then regulations would be adopted by the Conservation Commission at a public hearing, which needs to happen prior to June 30th in order for us to meet the requirements of the EPA. Did that answer the question, Dan, or am I missing it?
No, I think so. So they're actually okay. So there are regulations, or they will be.
There will be. What's before you tonight is the bylaw, and we're holding a public hearing so that we can then go to town meeting and saying we followed all the steps for adopting a bylaw, and the Conservation Commission is willing to be the holder of the bylaw and administer it, and regulations will be coming later on after town meeting before June 30th, which will outline specific requirements for submissions, approval, and guidelines for during and after construction and operation and maintenance plans going forward beyond.
Do you anticipate that we might need some training on how to implement these regulations?
We are working with Emily and Cassandra to give you everything you need. Like I said before, a lot of what Mia is doing now is what will be required for the administration of the site visits. In terms of the permits, I'm expecting that Emily and Cassandra will help us to develop a model permit application, inspection forms, all the things that we need to implement the program and keep it in compliance with the EPA. Like I said, a lot of it's being done. This just kind of confines it to the commission.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Anybody else questions?
Couple of quick ones, just for One thing I've seen in some other towns and wonder if we want the same here as far as exemptions go would be, I know some will have an exemption if the project is already within the jurisdiction of the Concom and requires an order of conditions already. So I'm wondering if we want something like that in this bylaw. I mean, if somebody has to file for an order of conditions already, and they're filing an NOI, they essentially have to meet this anyways. Why make them file a land disturbance permit and an NOI at the same time? So I guess wondering if we want to include an exemption in there for if the project is already within Concom jurisdiction and requires an order of conditions. I don't know if you guys have seen that in other communities.
Yeah,
Or
I can talk about that. So we wrote a lot of bylaws like that back in 2005, 6, 7, 8. We thought this is brilliant. Exempt this, you're doing it anyways. And we were hoping that if Mass DEP had updated the handbook this year, before June 30th, we would be able to keep those exemptions. So we would absolutely recommend that if that were the case. The problem is because now the handbook is not meeting, the current handbook does not meet EPA's new requirements, so we can't exempt those. So you're stuck.
Okay.
So we're
So at
going
least for now, they might have to file 2 permits, but hopefully at some point that might get cleared up.
Yes. So
Maybe.
we're going through all those old bylaws and we have to go to town meeting to change them.
Oh, okay.
Emily, will this be something that we could modify the regulations for later to cover that? Or would it require a trip back to the town meeting with a bylaw amendment?
Technically, it should be a bylaw amendment, because if you're changing the scope and applicability of the bylaw, that's really town meeting. Like you might be able to do some procedural workarounds in the regulations if it's going to be basically an identical process, or it is an identical process. You're just going to issue the 2 permits. I'm still not convinced that the handbook is going to be identical to EPA's requirements, so we'll see.
Yeah.
What's your confidence level on when it'll be done?
I don't have any. I mean, I'm hoping in the year 2021.
Yeah.
The last update took 9 years.
9 years.
I guess one other quick one, just wondering, just in the definitions of kind of land disturbing activity, any activity that causes the change in the position or location of soil, sand, rock, gravel, or similar earth material results in an increased amount of runoff and pollutants, measurably changes the ground surface, and on and on. And I guess I'm wondering if the town is doing a roadway resurfacing project, and it might just be a mill and overlay, and they are, not going down to gravel, not exposing, the subbase under there, does that mean that they have to file under this permit? Or do we want to exempt an activity like, a mill and overlay on a roadway or something like that, so that we don't have to, burden the town with an application that they might not need otherwise for something like that? I guess just wondering, in your opinion, have you seen that anywhere else? I know it gives us an opportunity to then look at the stormwater and maybe make some upgrades and stuff, but if the town's just doing a resurfacing project, they may not want to, have to file and wait and, kind of go through this process. So just want to get your thoughts on that. What was that, Kelly?
In Westboro, because I do stormwater there for conservation. We have that restriction there, or I mean that exemption. We have, I'm actually looking at our exemptions right now. We have a couple, a decent amount of them, but stuff like firefighting activities, reconstruction, resurfacing. So there's a handful of them in there that help with that.
Yeah, so I would say that we could make that clear potentially in the exemptions, as long as it's just a mill and overlay. I know EPA for like the construction general permit typically doesn't consider that a land disturbing activity. They want you to do like a full depth reclamation before they would say you need to come get a construction general permit. So we could be consistent with with what EPA does with that. Like a couple of questions that have come up so far is just one, you don't want to treat the town necessarily different than anybody else. And the other is you want the land disturbing activity to be kind of sufficiently broad so you can catch some troublesome activities. Like what we're seeing is like clearing every tree on the site before you even come in for a permit. That's happening all over, and we're seeing a lot of towns want to tighten up their stormwater code, so you can't do that anymore, particularly because EPA is saying you need to implement LID to the maximum extent practicable. You really can't do that if you've already clear cut every tree on the property. So I think we could maybe work on that a little bit.
Yeah, because I think that in itself, clear cutting every tree or, doing something like that would increase your stormwater runoff, that would change your cover type. And, that would bring you into here, I guess, just thinking of, and I guess it's not even just the town maybe doing a roadway, but somebody that's, their parking lot's failing and they might just want to, put a new fresh coat of asphalt over the top of it. They might not even be digging, to do that. I don't know, just kind of wondering from the commission, certainly from kind of Fred and Mia's standpoint, where we want to draw that line. I know it can be fuzzy in some other communities, so it's always kind of one of those tricky spots, I guess.
Well, I've always tried to not treat the town differently, but exempt them wherever possible, just because sometimes it's not as easy a process if the town has to file a notice of intent for something that's a work that's not necessarily scheduled a great deal of time into the future. We do have a section in here under waivers that says that they have some leeway when it's in the public interest, and a lot of drainage work could be broadly interpreted as in the public interest if you're making improvements in an existing public street. But if you're a developer building a new road that's ultimately going to be a public road, you might not have that same qualification.
Mhm.
Like we do now, we file when we have the ability, when we're responding to an emergency or dealing with a flood or something. Then we do what we have to do. We button it up as quickly as we can, and if we have to, we'll follow up with a notice of intent with the commission post activity. But for the most part, that in the public interest, unless somebody tells me otherwise, kind of covers us for stuff that we would be doing that's maintaining what we already have for infrastructure, short of a full depth reclamation of an entire roadway.
Can I add one little thing? I don't know where it fits in here, but we in Westboro have some exemptions that I don't think we should have. And at the time of writing, it sounded like a great exemption. But as departments have changed, as personnel's interpretation of the exemptions have changed with different people, what made sense before doesn't really make sense anymore. So I would say it's hard to do the exemptions and make it. We have one that says municipal maintenance activities, blanket, just all municipal maintenance activities, and it sounded great at the time, but now it's hard to manage. So I would say just be careful of that when we put exemptions in, but definitely there needs to be exemptions. But like what Justin was saying.
Kelly, I'm also looking at Westboro's right now, and I do see that's kind of a blanket statement, but there is one saying the reconstruction or resurfacing of any public way shall be exempt from the provisions of this chapter. The use of best management practices shall be employed.
Yeah.
And that kind of says, if you're resurfacing, go ahead. But if we find runoff, just like with the Wetlands Protection Act, if you're outside the jurisdiction, be careful, but once you enter our jurisdiction, you now owe us an order to fix it.
Yeah.
And then the other one is firefighting activities. I think that should also be exempt.
I just would not do a blanket municipal activity one. that's come back to haunt us in some situations.
Yeah, I do like the language of that one though, Mia, with the resurfacing of the roadways too, because I just feel like that could, you know, before you know it, we've got a lot of roadways in the town that we're sucking them into this requirement if we don't maybe have something like that about, you know, just maybe it's even how it's worded there. I think it said something about municipal resurfacing or something to that effect. You know, could be a good ad.
What, as long as we're talking scenarios, what if the reconstruction of the roadway involved additional drainage to handle some ponding or puddling issues that we're trying to get away from? And now we're not doing full depth reconstruction, but we're doing a little excavation in the road to add some catch basins and drain manholes and a new discharge off the roadway. Where does that fall? Is that over the limit for resurfacing, or is it still within the confines of in the public interest and maintenance? We're not adding a lane, we're not, you know, making a new road. It's kind of a tricky, there's the slippery slope that you end up on.
But if
That's
you
a good
were,
point, Fred. I've seen sometimes where they're, you know, even pointing out, you know, if you're making changes to a drainage system that services, you know, 40,000 square feet, or, you know, accepts runoff from an acre of runoff, or, you know, if you make changes to a drainage system that discharges to a wetland, which most will eventually make it there, you know, you could add that, but that sucks in a lot of things too. I mean, I think it's a tough slope to go down, I guess, as far as some of the exemptions go. You know, maybe that could be a particular case if we're making changes to a drainage system, you know, at that point, you know, maybe that triggers it. But if it's just a straight resurfacing project, you know, maybe it doesn't. But
one of my concerns, Justin, is that over the years, our drainage system has been repaired and maintained with leaching catch basins to solve a problem in an area that was just puddling and works a few months out of the year, but doesn't really work. And it's not the solution that we want to go forward. And matter of fact, I see down the road us changing the drainage that we have to get away from leaching catch basins and a catch basin and drain manhole configuration with an actual discharge at some point. And it's not, you know, we're not digging up the entire road, we're not excavating all of the pavement, but we're going to have to address these leaching catch basins as we come across them in the future. And I don't know if there's a provision in here for us to have like a general permit that's submitted annually or every couple of years with an outline of what the department might have for projects outlined going forward, depending on, you know, financial approval from town meeting or something. You know, they do have a list. The pavement management program that we have now has allowed us to do much more advanced planning and preparation for a number of changes throughout the year, and we get to them when we can and when the money is available. And, you know, generally July and August, as soon as we get that money, they're out there. That list is being hammered away at, and there's usually a few months at the end of that fiscal year where they have to plan for the next. So maybe there's we used to do that years ago with the DPW when we had sometimes a better relationship, or in different ways. And they would tell us, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. Or they would just ask for a general order that's good for a year, and then they would figure out what they're going to do afterwards, which wasn't always as helpful. But we can look at it a little bit closer, and I think it may be something that we can put our heads together in and make sure that we're covered in there broadly enough in the bylaw to allow us some flexibility, but then tighten it up in the regulations, you know, going forward, hopefully later this year.
We have a couple of, there was input on a couple of waivers or exemptions, I guess, right? To be added. maybe something around firefighting activities, and then something around, I wrote it down as the mill and overlay exemption. That's kind of the mill and overlay exemption with no changes to the existing drainage environments or something. So,
And is the same exemption there, Emily, that's currently in the Wetlands Protection Act about drainage, detention basin mowing and maintenance without triggering an order of conditions? Maintenance is exempt in that regard. That's what I had assumed Kelly's Westboro version was initially addressing, and I can see how liberties may have been taken over the years to expand what falls under maintenance, but my understanding is that, you know, detention basin mowing and maintenance and even excavation of sediment that's built up over the years is exempt from filing of notice of intent, whether it be the town or even a private individual who has a detention basin on their property. I assume that would carry over into this.
I believe that that's exempt. I don't think we've said exact. I mean, we can clarify that, but I think that that should be exempt, BMP maintenance. And just, I wanted to go back to the firefighting flows. That is covered already in Northborough's illicit discharge bylaw. It's called, illicit discharge municipal storm drain bylaw. So we refer to that definition here. We haven't really talked about that in this bylaw specifically.
And I think maybe the exemption to Fred's point, I mean, maybe it's even in the definition of a land disturbing activity, because you're not necessarily changing the drainage pattern or anything to increase flow. Like, I think just some of that definition of what a land disturbing activity is might essentially exempt some of that maintenance activity, Fred. Maybe just in that definition alone.
As a guy who gets to interpret it a few times, I personally wouldn't consider mill and overlay a disturbance as long as the base pavement was still there and still stable. And although there's some dust and there's some debris associated with the milling, it's not the same as just carving a path through the woods and tearing up the topsoil and getting down to the gravel below. So I wouldn't consider that, but I have long wanted the ability to get parking lots that are looking to overlay to come before someone, whether it be the Conservation Commission or the Planning Board, to see if in fact they have adequate drainage, significant, proper number of catch basins to handle the water in the parking lot. And for years, not so much recently, but years ago, the building inspector insisted that I had no jurisdiction for that and I couldn't get them to come in. It was my thought that we had it under redevelopment, that if they want to repave the parking lot, we should be able to get them to add drainage, whether it be some more catch basins or a detention basin, in order to meet the regulations as an improvement. But I'm hoping that this will allow us to capture that. So we gotta find a way.
Maybe that definition of land disturbing activity, I mean, maybe that also kind of fits the mill and overlay piece of it. It's kind of can be interpreted, I think, to your point, Fred, that you're not necessarily changing the drainage patterns by doing a mill and overlay necessarily. It's not changing the cover type of the land. It's, it's a very temporary condition while you wait to pave, maybe that's a little bit more an interpretive way of looking at what a land disturbing activity is, and maybe can give you some flexibility there too.
Well, and we have that 1 acre threshold, so that's a lot of roadway before you get to an acre of disturbance, but not necessarily that hard to obtain if you're doing a parking lot.
Right.
more questions for the commission? No, this is a public hearing, right? But the public input. Before we get there, so are we going to move forward with some exemptions or waiver discussions here or not? I heard firefighting is being already linked in somehow. although I couldn't find it in a brief 30-second purview.
I believe what Emily was referring to was another bylaw that we have is the illicit discharge and bylaw that we have adopted through a different section of the town code that prevents people from tying in failing septic systems to the drainage system as opposed to, you know, trying to get a town sewer or replacing the septic system. It's not very often that happens. We do find them occasionally. More often than not, what we find is people draining a swimming pool who didn't wait the appropriate amount of time for the chlorine to be dissipated before discharging it to the street and ultimately to the town's drainage system. That's the more common one, but there are other cases that we try to, that we have the ability to regulate and stop if it's being done.
Is that the firefighting activity?
Excuse me?
Is that the firefighting activity?
No. The illicit discharge is it when someone's draining their swimming pool,
Right.
they drain it into a nearby, they run a hose into a nearby catch basin.
Yeah.
It has to meet a certain limit of a chlorine content. And most people don't either know that or don't wait the week or so that it takes for the chlorine to just dissipate naturally, and then the water can be drained into the catch basins appropriately and legally. But occasionally somebody will just siphon off some water off the top of the pool without waiting because they're worried about the not being enough chlorine to keep the rest of the water that they're not draining off. Or the other thing that we try to avoid, we try to find when we can, is if someone has an old septic system that's failing, and if there's no sewer in the area, they may be tempted to connect to a catch basin nearby to take that water away, although that water has a lot of contaminants in it that we don't want in our drainage system that ultimately gets into our lakes and ponds, rivers.
Kind of like cousin, what's his name in Christmas Vacation, right? We dumped the, we empty out the.
Yeah.
Okay.
The guy who lives in Area 51, yes.
Right. Okay, but what about the firefighting activity that Kelly brought up in Westboro? Is that something we want to make sure is covered, or is it already there?
I believe what Emily's saying is it's already covered under the illicit discharge. It's exempted in the illicit discharge bylaw. I don't know that it needs to be listed as a separate exemption here if it's covered there. Otherwise, unless Emily thinks differently.
No, it's an allowable non-stormwater discharge under that bylaw. And I suspect Westboro maybe combine the illicit discharges and the land disturbance into one bylaw. There's a lot of bylaws like that.
The other change we talked about was the mill and overlay exemption piece. If that's do we need to put that in writing someplace or mention it or link to it?
I mean, I guess I'm okay either way. And, I guess I'd leave it up to Fred and the town on that one. I mean, if the definition of land disturbing activity kind of gives him a little bit of that flexibility to kind of understand, what is considered a land disturbing activity, I think that can kind of leave it up to engineering. And then from there, can kind of determine it. Might be better that way, Fred. That way, if there is something that you want to have brought in here, there's not that specific exemption around it, maybe.
Like I said, I wouldn't consider mill and overlay a land disturbance simply because the ground would still be stable. We have a land disturbance bylaw or a section in the planning board regulations that is limited to 20,000 square feet, even if it's on multiple lots owned by the same person. And that was implemented because we had people clearing land and taking down trees and then just leaving it, or even more significant, stripping the land, pulling the stumps and disturbing the topsoil and then walking away, or not proposing a project, just going out and cutting the land. Now what we find is that 20,000 square feet gets kicked off when a developer might own 3 or 4 lots and decides to develop them all at the same time because of economy of scale. You get bulldozer in to clear, 2 acres, which might be 3 houses. He goes over that limit without realizing it, but he's exempt from that permit if he has a order conditions, earthwork permit, or something, site plan approval or subdivision from the planning board. So it's not intended to capture people who are already in the system getting a permit properly. It's intended to capture those people who are maybe attempting to farm some land that they don't think needs any other permits.
So no significant, no changes, modifications, or additions in the waiver or exemption area.
I don't think so at this point, unless we take a look at it a little bit closer, see if there's any leeway in that wording that we think could be abused. But my guess is that we're okay the way we are. But from what Emily tells me, I'm assuming that if we wanted to make a change, we need to do it in the bylaw and not the regulation, because it would fall under that exemption, which is something that needs to be addressed in the bylaw. So we could take a look at it again, see if there's something that kicks off a threshold that we don't want to. But I think we're okay with what we have, but I'm happy to look at it one more time.
I mean, the items brought up today, those two have been, I think, dealt with. So.
Yep. I think that with what we have and my interpretation of land disturbance, roadway, mill and overlay would be appropriately exempt. I will talk to the DPW director, see if there's some other maintenance process that he has in mind that might be more invasive than that, and see if it needs some other language. But I think we're pretty good with what we have.
Public hearing. So let's see, we have, I see a hand up here from Scott Rogers. Okay. We bring Scott. Scott, you are there.
Thank you very much. Scott Rogers, 26 Tomahawk Drive. Just a question on the 1 acre threshold. Is that just a practical size balance that has a permit required when it's a significant disturbance? Is that just a kind of a practical threshold?
Well, the 1 acre is the suggested language under the EPA stormwater program, and we're trying to meet the criteria that the EPA has set for us without being additionally and overly restrictive.
I guess my question is do we have insight on why the EPA selects that as a threshold?
I assume that they believe that projects disturbing under 1 acre are less often the case and more easily managed on site without creating a significant runoff problem off-site. That's my guess. So unless Emily has some other thoughts on that, they're looking at their EPA started this program, and it's not just here in Massachusetts, but it's nationally. And so Massachusetts, being a fairly small state land-wise, is being, the same regulations are applied to, much larger states with much larger construction sites and more frequency of them. And so they had to draw the line somewhere. And for them, an acre was, anything over an acre could be considered significant in terms of runoff and pollution coming from those sites. So I believe that's where they came up with that number.
Yeah, I believe it's in line with national implementation of this code. It started out at 5 acres back in, I think, the early 90s, and then they brought it down to that 1 acre threshold.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good, Scott?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So Fred, just following up on that question. So if there's a piece of land in town that's, say, 1/2 an acre, but it's on the side of a mountain that's heavily sloped, that's non-jurisdictional.
Well,
no wetlands nearby, no rivers, no resource environments nearby.
No, that's true.
potentially, it could be considered non-jurisdictional, and it would depend on what the person who owns the property was planning to do with it. If they're just clearing it for the sake of clearing it and there's no wetland involved, then they would be exempt. If they're under the 20,000 square feet and they're proposing any type of building construction, they would be getting a permit from planning, zoning, conservation, or someone along the way. They 19,999 square feet, if they could document that, would be exempt.
Okay, that's, again, a rare scenario.
Somebody had a piece of land and they wanted to develop it as a tree farm, say, and they wanted to clear what was there so they could, you know, keep the topsoil and then replant with trees, then they could, as long as they could document that they were under the 20,000 square feet of disturbance. Then there's always the agricultural exemptions that we always get caught up in.
I don't see any other hands up or requests from the audience. So we just keep going once, going twice. Anybody else have questions, comments? Okay. So do we need to vote this, Mia? Does the commission need to vote to accept the management of chapter 2-60?
Well, we would certainly like to know that you're in favor before we go to town meeting and say you are. I don't know that a formal vote's required, but if there's any apprehension, now would be the time to speak up. The goal here tonight was hold a public hearing, put it out there in a public forum. There'll be a town meeting for the actual adoption, but we'll want to make a presentation at town meeting indicating we've met with the Conservation Commission. They're agreeable to administering the program and entertain questions at that point to a larger audience if necessary. But we would
I think a vote would hurt though, Fred. You know, it would just document.
a straw poll wouldn't hurt. Whatever
my
you
only
want to call it.
My only concern that's already been answered is the impact on Mia, and there appears to be no concern on that one. So I will be happy with that. So
I promise you, she is not bound and gagged in the other room so that she can't voice her objection.
I can see her right here.
It's a filter.
That's really her. It's not just an image. It's not just a photo.
Okay, then let's just do a roll call on that to accept this as presented. So if you're in favor of the commission taking on this responsibility as presented, let's just agree. Diane Goldner,
Yes.
Todd Helwig,
Yes.
Justin Dufresne,
Yes.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Kelly Marston,
Yes.
and I also vote yes.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Emily, thank you, and Cassandra, thank you for your presentations. Very, very sharp and to the point.
Okay, thanks for having us.
Fred, do we need to see you again before town meeting? I mean, or?
I'm always here if you want to talk to me, but I don't anticipate having to come back for this bylaw. If there are other questions, if you have any questions or any modifications that anyone thinks of along the way that you know of in another community that we've missed, I'm happy and open to take suggestions, although
Great.
I have to tell you my deadline with the town administrator is actually 2 weeks ago. So
We have plenty of time. Here we go.
he extended it for me due to some illness here in the office. So we're good, but I'm happy to take comments if you have them and incorporate them. And then I'd rather do it before than on the floor of town meeting.
No, this of course, yes. This is pretty well, it's well done. And I think that the commission it's a logical place for enforcement. So
Yes, I think we have an excellent choice in our consultants, and they've done a very good job preparing this for us and helping the presentation that we have. So
super.
we're
Very
looking
good.
forward to wrapping it up.
I bet. Okay, very good. Thank you again, Emily and Cassandra and Fred, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Okay, thank you and good night.
Right.
Okay, Jim, you gotta take care of moving people off that roll. Okay. You've got another 25 minutes, Justin, right?
Yeah.
7:30, not 7:15, okay. But we have let me see, are our presenters here? Let's take a look. Yeah, we got, let's see, Dan, right? Me, it was Dan LaFrance for the, from
Dan
Commonwealth.
LaFrance, James Matz.
Okay, let's bring them on here next. This is a informal discussion on the agenda. 0 Lyman Street determination of applicability, which are the older buildings on Lyman Street. We approved some activity there a while ago. There's a request for modification to erosion controls. So let's see, James Matz is with us and Dan LaFrance is there. I see James, I don't see Dan, but he may want it that way.
Dan may be having dinner.
Maybe having
I'm not
dinner.
sure.
Okay,
Right here.
here he is. No, he's done with
There
dinner.
he is.
Welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you. First, thank you very much. We really greatly appreciate you. And Mia, for starters. Mia, thank you very much for getting us on your agenda in extremely short order. We greatly appreciate it. We're about ready to go out to bid for the demolition project in a few weeks. And so as we were putting together the final bid documents, we wanted to come here and just take up a few minutes of your time to show you the plan that we submitted with the RDA. Mia, if you would be so kind, could you share the plan with us? Or maybe Dan could, whatever's easiest or quicker. There we go. And if we can,
James, this is on the first one, right? Or phase 1, I guess we call it. This is
Right.
the one that, this does not include the smokestack area.
that's correct. So this is only the phase 1 project, which was part of the RDA we came to you folks about. This plan does not include in any way the notice of intent that we came to you, which is really the phase 2, which is the power plant and the small sewer lift stations that are actually just south of the Chauncey Hall project. There we go. So what I do want to start with is what we're going to proceed with the installation of the ENS controls. And that is generally starting at the southwest corner as you look at this plan to encircle the pole barns, the small paved area, generally going up towards the north and starting to trend towards the northeast toward Chauncey Hall. We are going to proceed with the installation of those ENS controls because it is clearly understood that those buildings and that portion of the property, albeit upland, is very close to the resource area. And in fact, very close to the isolated wetland that we've previously discussed during one of our previous presentations. So we are going to continue as is with the installation of the ENS controls during the project.
That's around building 6 and building 7.
Correct. Yes, sir. Thank you. So let's move over to the east where Chauncey Hall is, referenced here as building 5. This part of the project is clearly upland, thank you, Mia, and non-jurisdictional. The high point of the project at this point is really Lyman Street. So it's just slightly above an elevation to the south of Chauncey Hall. It's more of a broad slope, somewhat south to north to Chauncey Hall, excuse me, heading further north to the tree line. So this is a pretty flat, broad slope. What we're proposing in lieu of the ENS controls here is to use good engineering and construction management practices so that we do not have excessive siltation. We do not anticipate any. And if we do have siltation, it should stay, or any type of runoff, it should stay within a few feet of of the demolition project itself. So again, we have Lyman Street, to summarize, we have Lyman Street, which is the high point of this part of the project, trending north to Chauncey Hall and trending further north, thank you, Mia, to the tree line. The tree line is south, quite a distance from the buffer zone, about 100 feet. So again, we feel that with the implementation of good construction and engineering practices, we will have our person, Fuss & O'Neill, Dan's firm, on site every day. DCAM will have their person or people on site every day to manage this project on behalf of DCAM and on behalf of the community, such that we believe that the installation of ENS controls in the area that's indicated by the squiggly line is really not warranted. And by the way, we didn't take a plan here and just scribble on it. This is actually featured on CAD. We wanted to show you the plan that we presented and then what it would look like, where we were going to install the ENS controls to the west, and where we're not going to install the ENS controls.
Jen,
So that's really all I have. We're open to questions.
The controls to the north and the east of Building 5 that you want to get rid of, they appear to be well outside the 100-foot buffer to begin with.
They do. Well within the 100-foot buffer to begin with. So, we proposed them as, I think, a really conservative measure. But once we went and laid out the project again in the field, we kind of really started to scratch our heads again and say, why did we propose this way up here in the upland? So that's why we've come back to you as a courtesy, because even though it's non-jurisdictional, we feel it's appropriate to be transparent and come before the community, before the commission, and say, this is what we plan on doing.
Yeah, no, we certainly appreciate that. Okay. All right. Any comments from the commission?
It seems fine to me. I don't see any issues with it.
Yeah, same here. No issues on my end. I think they're plenty far away from the wetlands where that area is. It seems generally pretty flat. I mean, I can't imagine anything would make it, 150 feet out to the wetlands from there just as a demo. And then I know, James, I don't know if you mentioned the other construction entrance, but it looks like, is that no longer proposed either? It looks like you'll consolidate those to 2 on the driveway, maybe 2. I think that makes all the sense in the world too. There's no reason for the vehicles to come out, directly onto the street right there. They could enter and kind of exit for the demo, right on those track pads that are off the driveway.
Agree. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for mentioning that. I actually forgot. So thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. Yes, you're correct. Yes, we will not have a truck pad that comes directly to the street. We will keep both truck pads that exit to the driveway loop, if you will.
Any more questions or concerns, comments? Mia, how are you with this? Mia?
Sorry, couldn't unmute. I think it looks fine. It's outside the 100-foot buffer.
Yeah, it is. And the part that's most significant, that northwest side behind that building 7, I guess it is, or 6. I can't get 6.
Yeah, building 6 and 7, and along the western boundary, Greg, that we feel because it's really so close to the buffer zone, it warrants the installation and the maintenance of ENS controls in that portion of the project.
Good. Okay, Mia, should we vote this, or we probably should, right?
Yes, you should vote that, hopefully someone would make a motion that the proposed project change is insignificant and you accept the new plan.
Right.
Need a
I'll
motion.
make that motion.
Motion by Todd, is there a second?
Second.
Second by, I think that was Kelly. Roll call vote. Diane Goldner,
Yes.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Todd Helwig,
Yes.
Justin Dufresne,
Yes.
Kelly Marston.
Yes.
I vote yes. Very good.
Thank you very much, everyone. We really appreciate your time. We really do. We're on a tight schedule, and as you know, DCAM is all about schedule. So for me, and for you to squeeze this in, and then the commission to hear us tonight, again, we really appreciate it.
I posted the agenda to the town clerk and then you called. I called up to town clerk and I said, did you post it yet? She said, not yet. I said, give me 5 minutes.
Yeah,
So
I really
it's just
appreciate it.
right
We
in
really
time.
do. Yeah. So,
Thanks,
all
James.
right. Well, everybody, please stay safe in the storm. Continue to be well. And we're looking forward to working with you on this project throughout.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Have a-
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, let's see. So let's go to the NOI for 20 Dennis Circle. Let's see, we need to bring in Already brought in. My God, Jim, you are good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Mark Farrell.
Hi, Mark Farrell here.
How are you, Mark?
I'm good, thank you.
You are on.
Okay, great. My name's Mark Farrell, Green Hill Engineering. I'm representing Trinity Church and the repair of a septic system. The property's on Dennis Circle. It sits kind of up on a hill a little bit, and then in the back it drains down to a brook that runs behind the houses that are on, an unnamed brook that runs behind the houses on Church Street. So basically they have a septic that's not working properly, and they're interested in upgrading it, which will involve putting in a new 1,500 gallon 2-compartment tank right behind the house. And then below that, proposing to put a Presby septic system in there. And we chose that because 2 reasons. One is it's a little bit smaller in size, so it minimizes disturbance to the site. And it also can be graded somewhat consistent with the existing grade. So it's not going to be a big mound. It will just be slightly raised and follow the existing contours of the land. As I said before, there's an unnamed brook in the back, and associated with that, it's maps out as perennial. And associated with that is a inner and outer riparian zone. All the work is outside the inner riparian zone. A portion is within the outer riparian zone. Approximately 3,000 square feet of land. 3,000 square feet of land will be disturbed in the area of the leach field. Below the work area, I proposed a combination for erosion control, straw wattles and a silt fence. The area below, the grades aren't excessive. That should be more than adequate to protect the wetland resource area and the riparian and the brook. That's pretty much what the project is. I'd be glad to answer any questions. Anybody has any?
Can you blow it up a little bit, Mia? There you go. So Mark, how much, there's no inner riparian zone impact, right?
Correct.
And there's how much outer riparian zone impact? That's what I'm looking for here.
About 3,000 square feet.
3,000 square feet, okay. I see disturbed area, right?
Disturbed area.
Okay.
And if you look closely at the drawing, you can see a disturbed area there, 31.
42, yep.
42, and just above that is a dotted line. And that's kind of on the inside of the silt fence, and that would be the approximate area that would be disturbed.
Okay.
And there'd be 2 trees that would have to come down in that area up there.
Okay. Mark, what's the status of the system now? I mean, is it totally non-functional, or is it functional, but we know there's trouble brewing?
Trouble brewing. I would say it's trouble brewing to, having possibly leaking out on the ground.
Okay.
So they would like to take care of the problem. It's not going to, when a septic gets into this condition, it's not going to go back on its own. The only way to rectify the situation is put a new septic system in.
Okay. All right. Mia, you took a site walk here, yes?
Yep, I have a few pictures. They're very snowy, but I can share them.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get them open.
Hey, Greg, I have a question.
Okay, Dan, go ahead.
I guess I'm curious, why not put the leach field, the new one, where the old one is?
I can address that. It's Mark Farrell again. basically what we're trying to do is avoid the use of a pump. And so if we would put it back in there, you'd have to mound the system in the backyard. So you'd come out of the house, the grade would go up. The leach field would be above grade, and then it would then grade back down. So require putting in a pump chamber.
Excuse me, I don't think the Wi-Fi is working. Capital B on butter. Yeah, I'm still here, Michelle. Didn't age either. I promptly turned over to the FBI. I know for a fact that you have had second.
Can you see the photos?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a large field in the
Oh.
distance there?
This is it. Sorry, that last one, that's not it. That's another site. This is it here. That's the backyard. That's the slope. You can see the wetlands at the base of the slope. A little bit of debris. Can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Some metal in there. Again, it's just a wooded hillside. So I am fairly confident in the wetland delineation. It is very slope defined. The trees are consistent with Mark's delineation, even though it's winter.
Back to Dan's comment. So it sounds like we're taking this approach from an aesthetics perspective.
Well, to avoid a pump, I mean, when we put a septic system in, we always try to avoid a pump if possible. The work actually has an exemption in the Wetlands Protection Act. If it's a repair of a septic system for a house in existence with no expansion, you're allowed to repair the system. So it falls under one of the exemptions under the Rivers Protection Act. So it just will grade better and avoid the use of a pump, which is always a good thing. I mean, the pumps are subject to having a breakdown when the power goes out. We have issues. So like I said, whenever we can avoid a pump, we do that.
Okay. And you are certainly, out of riparian zone too, so. All right. Other questions, comments? Mia, you good?
Yes.
Okay. Dan, how are you in this one?
Was that for me?
Oh, Dan Clark.
Dan.
I don't know. I mean, certainly lots of septic systems have pumps. So I guess I'm not convinced that you couldn't put it back where it is now. What the disturbed area, what's there now? Is it wooded? It's hard to tell from the pictures. Is it lawn? What is it?
It's brushy. It's been disturbed. I mean, it's not undisturbed woods, and the whole backyard has some debris in there, which we get cleaned up. That's what it would look. That's what it looks like right behind. That shot right there is pretty much would be close to where the septic system is going to go. I think just on the other side of that little wood pile.
So you'd have to cut all those trees down?
Just a couple trees down. I mean, definitely the objective is not to increase the lawn area. It's just to, fix the septic system and avoid the use of a pump.
So I'm standing in the yard area, and then there's the wood pile. And then you can see back here's kind of a brush area and trees. And that's
Those
kind of
two-
what it is down the hillside.
Are those two trees coming out?
I think these are the two.
Okay. All right. Any further comments? Okay. Mark, when do you want to get this work done? When do you want to do it? Gonna wait for the snow to clear out, do it in the spring, or?
Yeah, they would probably start. I'm hoping the snow's gonna be gone here soon, another 2 to 3 weeks. So I would say kind of March, sometime in March, beginning of April. I'm not actually putting it in, so I'm not sure of the exact schedule of the installer, but I know they're probably out 2 or 3 weeks, and that would put us in the middle of March, beginning of April timeframe.
The installer.
Excuse me?
Who is the installer? Do we know?
I believe it's Curtis, Northborough Septic in town.
So Mark, you don't think there's any way to move that system a little bit closer to the house without requiring a pump and mounding?
No, I mean, I could move it probably a little bit, but when I designed it, I'm trying, you can see I actually moved it a little bit higher than the perk test there. So what I do is I just put the minimum grading on the minimum pitch on the pipes, and then I just have to see where it fits in there. The other thing we did to minimize that is the Presby allows you to take a 2-foot offset to groundwater. So we requested that. If we didn't have that, we want to go gravity, would be even further down the slope. So by putting that system in, I could actually pull it up higher, minimize the disturbance to the area, and not have to.
So I would be prepared to issue a order of conditions as it stands now. I think if we were to go trying to move the location of this one, we would be upending a lot of our past practice, which we can do, but this one's, pretty far away from the edge of the wetland.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am, Todd. I mean, it is in the outer riparian, on the outside of the outer riparian. I mean, if it was closer or at the 100, I'd have a different approach, I think. But. Okay.
So I'm going to make that motion then to issue an order of conditions for 20 Dennis Circle.
First, we have to close the hearing.
I'll
Close the
make
hearing
the
first.
motion to close the
We
hearing.
have to take public comment. Sorry.
I quit.
Hold that motion.
Is there any public comment? I don't see any hands raised. Okay, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Diane Goldner. To approve to close the hearing. Roll call vote. Diane Goldner.
Yes.
Dan Clark.
Yes.
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
Justin Dufresne.
Yes.
Kelly Marston.
Yes.
I will vote yes.
Now I would make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 20 Dennis Circle.
Any special conditions?
None.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Is that Justin?
Yep.
Roll call vote. Diane Goldner.
Yes.
Dan Clark.
No.
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
Justin Dufresne.
Yes.
Kelly Marston.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Did you get the votes, Mia? I presume she did. It's fine. Okay. Carrie.
Okay.
Mark, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
And would you please, for the property, would you please express the concern, to the installer, they do maintain, they stick to the plan?
Yes, sir.
And that
I
was
will do that.
very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something? Right.
Yes, ma'am.
I've noticed that around town, there's been a lot of septics going in recently, and with the soil being kind of soft underneath all the snow, there seems to be a lot of tracking out into roads, and they're not watching to see where there's drains and things. Unfortunately, Mr. Septic there is
Mark
guilty of a lot
Farrell's
of,
here.
huh? No,
Mark's here.
no, I know, Curtis.
Oh, Curtis.
He's a little bit on the guilty side there.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe Mia can make a phone call or drop a note, or I know we've had some concerns in the past too. That's why I brought that up. So
Can I just,
sure, Mark.
probably not you. I know you guys were talking about stormwater tonight.
Yep.
And I think that some of the other towns, they do have things in there that require tracking pads at all construction sites. And that's I don't know if it's the state of your bylaw or whatever, but that's probably not a bad idea to have. And, it's not required now, but I think that would address some of Diane's concern that they, when you're leaving the site, you can track some mud into the road, and the tracking pads tend to reduce the amount that would get in the road.
I know that we frequently make that as a condition on the order. Mia, that's not part of our standard Ts and Cs though, is it?
Yes, it
It
is.
is part of the standard.
Yeah, we generally look at the site, and if it's going to be, we look at how they're going to access the site. I think we assumed, let me pull up the plan. I think we assumed they would access it directly from the driveway. And then it's possible they could go, there's a drain easement. We closed the hearing, so we can't really discuss
Right.
this site, but generally we would say, how are they getting in? Maybe if needed, put a tracking pad. This site does slope back from the street. And I don't think there is drainage in the street. Let me double check that. Wayne was famous. Dan, that's gonna have to be you now. Because Wayne would always go, how are they getting in there? Put a tracking pad in every single time. Let's see.
Hey, sorry guys, I gotta run. Good seeing everybody. Take care, be safe. See you next month.
Thanks, Justin. Same to you.
Justin.
Yeah, good night.
Drain system.
And there's no erosion control devices there anyway, so.
No, there's no catch basins right out front. The catch basins are further up the street.
Nope.
Good, 200 feet.
Okay. No, thanks,
Otherwise, we
Mark.
would have asked for those to
Okay,
be
great.
covered.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You too,
Stay well.
thank you.
And Diane, we'll keep an eye on them.
Okay. That's fine.
I'll let them know
All
you're,
right.
you're watching.
Me, you want to talk about proposed changes to the town Northborough wetlands bylaw?
Sure. I'm not sharing anymore, am I? Okay. Let me see if I can pull that up. So we've talked about just small updates. The most pressing one, it's not very important, is that we'd like, and we get a lot of requests for this, to allow people to use certificates of mailing instead of just certified mail. Cost of certified mail is about $7 an article. We recently had an RDA with almost 100 abutters. So it was over $600 to notify the abutters. So, a single family house could have 2 or 3 abutters. It could have 10 to 20 abutters. It's still a significant cost increase, especially when the cost of an RDA, the local fee is $75. The cost to notify abutters is even more than the fee. So certificates of mailing are about $1 an article. And they just allow people, it's more like a spreadsheet list instead of the green cards. And they use them, I use them in other towns. The state does allow them, but the local bylaw requires certificates. Certified mail return receipt requested. So this would just add the words certificate of mailing. I'll see if I can open it up.
Well, the state does allow them already. Other towns use them already. It does provide the same amount of enforcement or support that the current one does.
Mhm. And that's because the state regulations say in their regulations that they allow certificates of mailing, and our regulations don't say that. This is the article request. So we just be adding hand delivery or by certificates of mailing. We'd be adding those words. And it's really because it's mostly the majority of notices of intent and RDAs we get are for single family homes, doing landscaping, yard work, or septic replacements. So the burden's really been on them.
So Mia, I admit, I don't know what that is. What's the difference between a certificate of mail and just a first class stamp?
You get a receipt, proof that you mailed it. So
I see.
you go to the post office with a list and you bring your letters and they just make sure that those letters match lists and they stamp the list. Whereas a certificate of certified mail return receipt is the green
Yeah, I've used
postcard.
those, right?
Yeah.
Right. I use
So
those a lot, yeah.
you get a proof that you mailed it and you also get the return receipt. That's why it's so expensive.
Okay.
I submitted this to my supervisor and the town administrator, and the only question that came back was if this would open us to, litigation. And my response is that this is just mimicking what's in the state, because the state law says the same thing our law says, but then the regulations allow certificate of mailing. Our regulations don't. I think it should be addressed in the bylaw, all in one place, because it's questionable whether we're making that change in the regulations. We don't have a section in our regulations that addresses this. It's addressed in the bylaw. So we should address it in that same section. And, they're not facing any additional litigation. The Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act says that you actually, the commission, before you open the hearing, you're required to determine if the public has been adequately notified. So I look at the green cards. If there's a whole bunch missing or they don't submit them, obviously we can't open the hearing. We've done that in the past, like no green cards, no opening. So in this case, they would just submit a certificate of mailing. We do this in Paxton, and it's just one piece of paper with a list of the addresses from the certified.
Town council in Paxton approve this?
We allow it in Paxton. We always have, because we didn't have a local bylaw for a long time. So we just mimicked the state, and the state allows it. And then now our local bylaw is silent on it. So we still allow it.
Can I make the motion that we approve this?
Second,
Seconded by Diane Goldner. Roll call vote on adding the verbiage to the town bylaw. Diane Goldner,
yes.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Todd Helwig,
Yeah, yes.
Kelly Marston,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Is that an asterisk, Todd, or something?
I'm not, it's something about this. I don't know. I've only ever seen green cards, but I'm old.
Parker, that's all we've ever had since what, 1997?
It's not just us, it's everywhere all the time. I've only ever seen green card.
Oh, okay. I did check with DP, MACC. I wrote to MACC and I said, where's the citation that I can really be confident that this really is allowed in the state law and it's not going to open us to any problems? And she wrote back and she's like, here it is, it's in the regs. And she gave me the citation where it actually says certificates of mailing. So
I have my faith in you, so I voted yes.
And Todd waits for the first time when the butter shows up as I never was notified.
they do that anyway. I'll have the green card and I'm like, you signed this. And they're like, no, I didn't. That must have been my son.
Well, you don't need to have the green card returned for it.
That's
You just
right.
need to- Lots of people, when they get foreclosed on, they just throw out the card. So, it's not going to stop justice.
Yeah, they come back. It says unsigned.
Right.
Really, the law just requires that you mail it.
Proof that it was sent.
Yep.
I'm good.
Okay, it passed, Mio, you're good.
Thanks.
Kelly, education programs and outreach discussion, Girl Scout project.
Oh, it came back. So did Mia tell you why I was asking about this?
It did, but this discussion on the green cards has discombobulated me, so you have to go ahead and start again.
So I am on a committee over in Westboro, and their trails, it's like our trails committee in town here, but it's a different trails beast over there. And their educational component is just outstanding. And I never knew it. And I was listening to this presentation and I was just blown away at how much learning and teaching, and they have people that go into schools and they have after school programs, and they have like selfie contests with different trail markers, and they just do a lot to get people out there. And we started talking about some of the interactive trail stuff that I did with students when I was teaching, and I started working and throwing ideas around with Westboro. And I was thinking, man, Northborough would be killing it if we did this. So I reached out to Mia, and that's how this started.
Well, we've got an active trails committee.
Yeah, it was more about the educational component. And so our trails committee is unbelievable in how much they maintain. And I'm on the Facebook site, so I see all the pictures that they take,
Sure.
and it's great. This is more of, getting kids into the wetlands, peeling back the moss, checking out, the little red Fs, and really from the foundation up, just instilling the love of the wetlands and just getting people out onto the trails, and not just one trail. So the entire town is not on Pisgah. It's everywhere else. So it was really cool. And it was interesting to see the programs that they did with the Westboro schools. So teachers could just reach out and they would come in and teach a class. It was cool. And where our trails committee is so robust, it just seems like something that some of them may be interested in. Maybe if it was something proposed, something I'm definitely interested in. I would love to carve out some time. I might get divorced if I do that, though.
Do you want me to tell you what we do? That we do have some programs. So the Trails Committee already does organized walks. Usually it's like as it new things open. Right now they're updating the interpretive trail on Edmund Hill. They'll lead a walk once that's established. We did that with the Burroughs Loop Trail. Once that was finished, we had an event, we led a walk. Allie Lane, the rec director, she also asked us to lead walks this winter. And I had a Trails Committee member who was willing, and we did it in pairs, with one person goes in the front, one person goes in the back. Right before I got COVID, I was scheduled in January to lead a night walk, which is only like 6 p.m. because it's pitch dark. And we were going to do Stirrup Brook. And she was just about to put it on the calendar when I got sick. And another Trails Committee member was going to do a daytime walk on a Saturday for Edmund Hill. So, we are, and I think now that I'm better, we'll connect again with the rec director. So we do respond. We have those programs. We also have the annual town cleanup. Over the past few years, we've been attending with a booth, and we do outreach there. We did the poster contest for Earth Day, which I'd like to do again this year. And then I go every year to the Northford Junior Women's Club. They have a STEM conference for middle school girls, where I do a presentation on water quality. So either composting worms or the, testing water quality detective kind of thing. And we run the same program 4 times for different sets of girls. So those are the programs we have. We also respond to any requests. We have local businesses. Someone did an Earth Day fair up on Forbes Road, and I can't remember the name of the company, but I went and attended that. So any requests we get. So that's the education outreach we have. And then there's the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. We respond to any and all. Greg just attended the Boy Scout meeting on Thursday. Thank you, Greg. But we don't have any, like, I think what Kelly's saying is if we look on their website, they'll have like every month, they have a few activities that people can sign up for and attend.
They got some active volunteers, you know, they got some, like anything, right? You got people that have a passion for it and they go for it, and that's what you need.
Mhm.
Kelly, it also sounds like they have a link with the school system.
They do, and I
Yeah.
think
That's key.
it sounds like they really pull in their local resources. So with Mass Wildlife right in our backyard, they take they have people from Mass Wildlife coming and doing presentations. Or like the creature teacher will come in with actual animals at the VFW, and kids can walk through and see the animals, you know. And it's something that's local that they, you know, there's this big old, I remember when I was on the Wildlife Society at Framingham State, we had some creature teacher come in and they had this opossum that was so old, and he would carry the thing around. I mean, it was so old and it was so docile, but kids just loved to see it and pet it. And I mean, this thing was raised from a baby. It was, the mom was hitting the road and they raised the opossum. It was like 15 years old. But it was really cool for the kids to see, oh, so they eat bugs and they're not gonna bite me. Well, they will, but you know, it was just nice to know about opossums. So just, it seems like Mia's doing so much, you know, if we could get other people to come in and help too, or just, you know, just different outlets or different businesses in town, or I don't know.
So there's a Girl Scout. Is she here? Is that Olivia?
The one that you
Somebody-
reached out to me to.
Yeah, so she's here tonight to hear the conversation. She's I think a senior scout doing her gold award, and she was
Olivia
interested in-
Peterson,
Yeah.
I just brought you into the meeting, Olivia. And you are on mute. You're no longer.
So I'm Olivia, but I don't think I'm the person you're looking for.
You're not a Girl Scout, Olivia?
No, I'm not.
Well, do you want to help with this? Do you want to help us with this?
I thought her name was
At one
Olivia.
point, but I'm not the Girl Scout you're looking for. No.
Okay, then I'm gonna move you back to what you were, okay?
Scout.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Oh, her name was Eva, not Olivia, Eva. So we could connect with Eva, and she is interested in, she says, most of my current ideas are centered around the youth of Northborough and helping create a positive impact in their lives. So, you know, maybe we could ask her if she wants to do a program. And it
Sure.
could be an annual program. Maybe she could, and I know what her passion is. Maybe she knows somebody with an opossum.
You know, it's a tough situation, Kelly, with COVID and so forth. But I mean, the connection with like the middle school or Algonquin and the bio department, the science department, I would think would be key to make too.
Yeah.
You know, to get somebody with us, that's a great idea. We love to do that. I know that our grandson's in 4th grade in Westboro, and he went on a trail walk. My guess that was probably part of the connection already made there. So.
Yeah. So anytime I see something cool in other committees, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna bring this back to Northborough because it's really cool and we need it over here.
Sure.
What about Diane? Does the garden club do anything? Do you know?
They have done programs with the kids in school if the teachers will ask. Plantings, like a bird house with plantings around it. Trying to think what else they've done. Gardens, they usually do vegetable gardens. So there are things like that, but you know, with this COVID thing, we're kind of stuck at the moment.
Library programs. I mean, that would be another avenue. But again, you know, a little bit constrained at this point in time. But, you know, where do we go from here? I mean, maybe talk to the Girl Scouts as a starting point.
Yeah. Maybe she could establish a program and give us a connect, like if she has a connection or knows a creature teacher or her high school teacher, and she wants to set up like an annual Earth Day event that we attend, a high school classroom.
There's also the DECA group at the high school.
Mhm. Are these,
But I had an experience with them a number of years ago. I went in front of DECA with an idea of having some student they had to take a project for the year. They have to do a outreach campaign for conservation in town. Let people know what it is, why you should be concerned about it, and so forth. And I was invited to speak in front of this, I think they're seniors or juniors, in front of their class, like at 8 o'clock in the morning. And it was like talking to a room full of mannequins. You know, it was they're just not awake at 8 o'clock in the morning. So that was my one experience with that. But yeah, I think that start with a Girl Scout and see what happens there, and we can go forward. But it's a great idea. We need outreach. We should. Okay. Creature teacher. That's great. Okay. All right. Anything else, Kelly? This was FYI, right? To bring it up that you're impassioned with this and you want to start doing it, and off we go.
did I connect you and Eva yet, Kelly?
You said
No?
she was gonna send an email, but I didn't see an email, but.
I'll send a group email to you and Eva.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on your side, Mia? I've got reappointments here. Reappointment discussion. 3 commissioners up for reappointment.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Kelly Marston, Diane Goldner, and myself. So you need to let Diana Wackel, you probably got a letter. You need to Diana Wackel know if you're interested or not by end of the month.
Next week, I think.
On that side. So that's what our plan, I mean, is the plan to stick around or not, Kelly? What do you think? I mean, you're taking on this giant new project here, so it's
Right? You're not getting rid of me.
okay. Diane, how about you?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay, good.
I'm trying to do a Nancy Pelosi thing. See if I can stay here until I'm 100.
So you all plan to apply for reappointment. I guess 2 years ago, I didn't realize this. Maybe we haven't had any reappointments since it started, but you're going to be reviewed.
Yeah, we had reappointments.
Yeah.
I think we've been a couple.
It used to just be I'm in. Yeah, the mirror test. You know, you hold up the mirror, and if it fogs up, you get to stay.
Who's going to review us?
So what are they reviewing us on?
Your performance. The Board of Selectmen are going to be reviewing you. I don't know if it's a subcommittee or what, but I did submit statements for each of you. They were glowing, and I really focused on your personal attributes to the committee and what you
Kelly,
bring.
yours was glowing in a really interesting color. I can't describe it.
Right, I'm gonna have to stop eating M&Ms on our Zoom calls.
Okay, good. That's good. So continuity is good.
And thank you for your service.
Anybody have anything going on? Any updates, anything? Dan, anything going on your side?
No, I don't think so.
No violations in your part of town? You haven't seen any equipment in the wetlands or anything, or those situations?
I have been keeping an eye out, but I haven't discovered anything yet, so.
Okay, fair enough. Good. Todd, how about you?
No, I just had a question. Are the surveillance cameras up on Pisgah?
They are not. I think you may have heard I had COVID for a month, and then all my coworkers were gone for a few weeks. So I had all my site visits ceased, and I had to just stay in and cover the office. But you know, March is right around the corner. People are returning to work, and we should be moving again. So get back out there. I can't wait to get back out there next week, hopefully. This week we had limited coverage, but it's just gonna get better from here.
Go. Today was a nice sunny day too. So, Kelly, when's the store open?
Next
Mother's
Friday.
Day. Oh, next Friday?
Next
Holy cow.
Friday.
No way.
Really?
Yay! Yeah, no, it's yeah, vacation's over.
Wow, that
But-
seems early.
Yeah. We always shoot for March 1st. It's a Monday this year, so I said, you know, why not just open up that weekend? But survival kits were insanity last week, so hopefully it'll be good next week. We'll see. It just needs to stop snowing.
Yeah. No. Well, tomorrow, we know tomorrow's got some stuff coming. Anybody not going to be here next month you know of? I think Tom Tom is questionable. I think he said he may dial in from a remote location or something. Okay.
So I want to let you know that in April, we're on the third Monday to kind of go around the Board of Selectmen. And then in May, we're back to the second Monday, and we should be able to continue with the second Monday again. The town is getting another webinar license. It should be up and running by May, so we won't have to hop around the Board of Selectmen. So hopefully we'll be able to just start regularly meeting on the second Mondays.
What's the third Monday in April? Is that
April 19th.
That's Patriots Day. Is that a problem?
Is it Patriots Day?
Mhm.
That tax day?
Oh,
Oh, Bruce, right?
because I think, well, 1 second.
What's
Town
that,
hall might
Diane?
be closed. Yep, Patriots Day Town Hall is closed. All right, so we'll have to look at,
TBD.
yeah. Because I guess this meeting caused some trouble with other boards that we took the webinar license on Wednesday. But, you know, we didn't end up here by choice either.
Okay. So next month, we're going to have possibly already the continuations rolling over 161 Church, 8595 West, and 0 Hudson.
Yes,
And 0 Hudson's a pretty complex one.
yes.
Where is 0 Hudson?
Diane, do you remember the number of years ago, we delineated a piece of property on Hudson Street and we were overruled by DEP?
Can't say that I do.
Okay.
It was all about
Hudson-
knotweed. It's next to 84 Hudson.
It's yeah. Isn't there a street next to it that comes down? No.
No,
If you go down Hudson Street, you see there's on going toward the center of town, left-hand side, almost to when you get, well, you're toward the end of it, there's a duplex with a gravel parking lot. And there's equipment parked in there sometimes. And right next to it is a couple of plots of overgrown thick brush. And that is the location.
Okay, I think that's the one Sue Brackett delineated at one time.
Correct. We approved the delineation.
Yeah,
We
okay.
rejected delineation and it was appealed to DEP and they overruled us based on soil versus we had used plant.
Yeah, okay. All right. I thought, I wasn't sure. Thank you.
All right. All
So
right.
the review, I sent them a review. It's in Dropbox. You know, take a look at it. They're compiling a response to the review. That's why they requested the continuance.
Okay. If there's nothing else,
Nope.
we need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Second by Kelly. Roll call vote. Diane Gouldner,
Yes.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Todd Helwig,
Yes.
Kelly Marston,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. We are adjourned.
Thank you.